Welcome to episode 60 of The Leap Home, The Wrong Stuff.
In this week's episode, Sam has to help two chimps in the space programme avoid a gruesome death as part of a research project. When Sam and his friend Corey fall out of the running to go into space, circumstances and some malevolent intervention leads them to a more lethal set of experiments. Without being able to communicate verbally, can he save his companion and himself? Or will they finish up at the wrong end of a crash test?
I don't think she's gonna put it in her mouth. Boy.
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. How are you?
Well, appropriately enough, I just received a call,
Yes, you did.
from my doctor, or the doctor's receptionist, booking me in for my annual review. And when I asked what it would involve this year, she seemed quite reticent to divulge the specifics.
Similarly experimental to the people in this episode, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I might want to relax myself before I go to this one. I'm at that age. Fortunately, it was a practice nurse, which is at least one thing. And I am tempted. I've never had this done for me to me before. But I am tempted to do the whole Fletch scene and hum Moon River and ask her if she's using the whole fist. But I'm worried that she might not get the reference and I will seem extremely odd.
I think that's the least of what you would seem. You need to make sure you're wearing a clean diaper.
Always. Always. Yeah, Sam was in very little attire this week. I think he quite likes it.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of titillation for a certain demographic, isn't it?
I think he seems quite proud of his physique.
It's back in the day when you could be proud and furry at the same time.
A furry?
He was furry, even as a human.
Okay.
Different tone from last week's episode.
Yes. Oh, we should say as well that people will have noticed that we beeped out a lot of the R words. That wasn't because we found it offensive or anything, but simply because a lot of platforms don't like the use of it and will suppress content. So we thought it would be as well just...
We've outsmarted them.
Yes.
Did you enjoy the premise for this week's one?
Yes and no. I fear we're going to go down the old rabbit hole of questioning logic and consistency.
Semantics, yeah. We'll get there.
We will.
Before we do, social media, we're available at Leap Home Podcast on all the usual channels, including X and Facebook and so forth. We're also on the leaphome.com where you can find show notes and an opportunity to leave comments, etc. If you want to listen to next week's episode right now, head to our YouTube channel, Columbo Podcast Productions, where it's already available. And please leave ratings and reviews wherever you can if you enjoy the show. Thank you.
All done?
Yes, time for the space programme.
Let's crack on.
Was it just me, or was the first part of this a little bit longer than we saw at the end of last week's episode?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe a bit more from the doctors. Anyway,
Sure.
We find Sam in what appears to be some kind of capsule,
A shuttle, yeah.
about to be launched into space, and he starts to panic for some reason.
Yeah, he's shaking seconds before liftoff, and we see the launch is being controlled by a team headed by a woman called Dr. Leslie Ashton.
That's right. Sam starts screaming that he can't do this as the observers, Ashton and I think Tucker, note a rapid and sudden increase in his heart rate.
As he panics, he tries to release himself from his seatbelt, as it were, as the launch appears to take place.
Yes, he screams his oh boy, and we get the usual credits.
We return and find out that it is not in fact a real live launch, but a training facility.
Yes, he's in a lab. It's January the 24th, 1961, and he's screaming for help.
And Leslie, noticing this agitation, extreme agitation, she calls for the mission to be aborted and goes over to him and opens the hatch, where he in fact finds out it's in a hangar.
Yeah, they don't seem to respond to what he's saying, but they note that he's not responding to the lights, and Dr. Ashton tells him that she thought he was going to have a heart attack.
She is obviously genuinely concerned and helps Sam out.
Yes, she asks him how he expects to beat John Glenn if he's going to panic like that.
And she's worried about his blood pressure.
No, I assume everyone will know the John Glenn reference first.
I'd imagine so, yeah.
Surely. If you don't, then it's your own fault. She's then surprised by his modesty when she removes his spacesuit and finds him wearing just a nappy.
Yeah, he's quite embarrassed, and he attempts to cover himself up. Before we, obviously the big reveal here, but the way she's talking to Sam just now, it doesn't seem like that's how you would actually talk to what he is.
No, but she's built a relationship over 2 years and thinks he's near human.
Yeah, okay.
But she does call him Bobo, which concerns Sam somewhat.
Yeah, and he turns to look in the mirror and is stunned to see what?
Well, he's a chimpanzee.
A chimp, yes, without the ability to speak, apparently.
Well, he can speak, but they can't hear him.
Okay, so this is issue number 1. We've established that he takes on he doesn't take on the physical attributes of the leapee, because when he was blind, he could still see.
Yes, but he is shrouded by the sort of veil of that person to others.
Okay.
I assume he also sounds like whoever he's leaped into, because otherwise it would be a big problem when folk are asking about his accent or his word usage.
Well, yes, that's another question we haven't really covered, and let's get pedantic. So when Sam is in a leapee, a normal leapee, he talks in the same cadence. He uses the same vocabulary, vernacular that he would. He doesn't change. If you're in the south of America, you're going to sound far different than if you're in...
Even from town to town, sometimes there's regional variations in word use. And
you could tell, like, that's not how this person... You're my husband, he never says that. Or he always uses a certain style. Even, in terms of how fast or slow they talk, it would be very different, wouldn't it, if all of a sudden that changes?
I would have thought so. So there must be some sort of element to his leap that doesn't make that obvious to people. Although to a certain point, if you're seeing the person you recognise, maybe your brain is filling in gaps and covering up for stuff like that.
But even the language. So we leaped into an American and we were talking about crisps in the boot of the car and nappies, exactly in this case. It would seem very, very strange.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Anyway, what happens?
Well, Ashton is initially surprised by Sam's erect stance.
Why have we both... I've said to Leslie starts to examine him and notices his erection.
I've not said erection, I said erect stance. Yes.
Which causes him to...
Schoolboy humour.
Yeah, which causes him to slouch over and act more monkey-like.
Well, yeah, it's almost instinctive. As soon as she says, you're not usually so erect, he slumps. Like, he has to fit in with her expectations.
Yeah, well, he says you're not vulnerable.
I'll do what you say. She helps him up onto a table to examine him, and she can't understand him.
So again, without wanting to labour this, she quite easily lifts him up.
Like he jumps.
But the question would still remain: is he the same weight as a chimp or as Sam?
And if he weighs the same as a duck, is he a witch?
Whatever happens, he makes sure that she doesn't remove his diaper, which leads to another question. We never see him being changed.
No, well, that's it, yes. At any point in this episode, which lasts a number of days, at least 2 days, does he not go to the toilet, or does he just sit in his own filth for the whole time?
I think he sits in his own filth.
We never see him doing that.
Well, you wouldn't. What do you want to see? Leakage?
Sam going...
He's a dirty boy. Dirty little monkey.
And then throwing it at somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, he stops her from changing his nappy.
So that's the thing as well. In real life, in this situation, would you wear a nappy? I mean, at the zoo, they don't put nappies on them. Would you have these chimps in nappies? Or would you just let them do their thing?
Maybe it's to help with keeping the cages clean, I guess. I don't know why they're being nappies. Yeah, no, I don't know. I can understand during an experiment, maybe you don't want to mess up your equipment. But not when they're in their own cage.
No.
Then it gets a bit like a zoo, I suppose. They're trying to maybe keep it.
And I think as well that a chimp would pull it off, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe. And we see one of them try to do that later on. Sam notes at this point that he's got a Nobel Prize in physics, but he's now having to fight to keep his diaper on. And he then gets covered in food.
Yeah, his mood is not improved by being hit in the face with this food thrown by Corey, the chimp who, according to an amused Leslie, is flirting with a Bobo. So this is a chimp in the next cage.
That's it.
So as she continues to examine him, Al arrives, and in this leap, Sam has no worries about speaking openly to the hologram.
No, that makes a change that he can just go about his normal method.
Of course, Al is not displeased by the situation he finds his friend in, nor the attractiveness of the Doctor, and goes on to give some of the background on the leap.
Al, I'm a chimp.
You're lucky you didn't leap in as a bullfrog.
Now you stay there and I'll be back. You be good.
It's gonna be hard to be good with you around, Doc.
I gotta get out of here.
Huh?
I gotta get out of here.
Oh. You leaped into the space program, Sam.
I've leaped into a diaper.
Wait a minute. This is fantastic. You're a chimponaut. Look around you. See those hairy little fellas? Within less than a week, one of these guys is going to be the first American to go up into outer space.
You were an astronaut, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on Apollo. We circled the moon 10 times. Recited Genesis on Christmas Eve. Oh, I hope you're lucky enough to go up there.
I'm not going up. I'm getting out.
Ah, you're not. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm telling them who I am so I can get out of here.
No,
It's
you
very
can't
simple,
do
see?
that.
My name is Sam.
All you're gonna do is get your brain dissected if they find out that you can write. God. What about the quantum rules? You have to at least pretend that you are who you leap into.
That's if I'm a human. I'm not a human. I'm a chimp. We don't have rules for chimps, do we?
You can't get off on a technicality.
Okay, wise guy. Then what am I here to do?
Join the circus.
This isn't funny, Al. This is not funny.
Have you looked in the mirror lately?
Yeah.
Look, I
Yeah,
dare
I've
you.
looked in
Go
the
ahead,
mirror
look.
lately. No,
look.
I don't want to look.
Look, I dare you. And if you don't think that's funny,
Ha ha, Al.
I think it was quite clear there that Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell were enjoying themselves.
But it leads to yet another question.
What's that?
How can Al understand what Sam's saying? We've established previously that he sees and hears Sam the same as the people around.
Yep. And also, does that mean there is a chimp running riot in the waiting room in the...
Yes. Fortunately, it's contained and it's got an nappy on.
Yeah.
You can see it throwing its own feces at the window trying to get out.
But that's a good question. How can Al hear? Yeah.
One theory that I've seen online is that after the problems with Al ogling Sam as a woman, they tweaked the connection so that he saw Sam as himself. I just didn't mention it.
Yeah, here you go. And here's, we can discuss this in a little bit more detail later on when we talk about sort of ethics of it. But my entire life, I'm sure yours as well, Ian, we were told how effective, chimps are basically the same as humans. They're so close, right?
Well, they share a common ancestor.
They're 99.99 whatever it says human.
Yeah, but we're not like 99.9% the same as a cabbage as well. It's
Well, in that case, they shouldn't be using that sort of that information, that data in reference to chimps. They're just taking the...
It's one of these data points that doesn't really mean anything because so much of DNA is the same for everything.
Because later on, Leslie's at it when she gets pulled up in this then.
Yes. And speaking of Leslie, she arrives with Dr. Tucker and she's saying to him that Bobo or Sam has been acting strangely today.
And both are puzzled when they read the note written by Sam. What does it say?
It says, "My name is Sam." But they each assume that either the other or somebody else has done it as a joke.
Which is a relief to Al, who then agrees to go and find out exactly why Sam is there.
Yes, and then a younger doctor called Dr. Winger.
He is this is an interesting one. Winger, for me, goes from being a complete creep and a sleaze to actually being, I'm not saying the good guy in any way, but he is able to defend his position probably more so than...
Yeah.
He's more pragmatic, and I think he shines a light on Leslie and what, she thinks she's perfect, and her actions are potentially not, depending on what you feel.
He reminded me a bit, for anyone that's watched ER, of Dr. Romano. He's got this sort of gruffness and matter-of-factness to him, but he's still
creepy.
He's not unreasonable.
All right. I thought in this first few scenes he was unreasonable. He was just a little sleazy creep.
Well, he is a sleazy creep when it comes to women, but in terms of his work, he's got a rational basis for what he's doing. He's not like a megalomaniac type guy just trying to kill chimps.
Yeah, he is there to study neurology. She doesn't seem to detect that the guy is a bit of a creep and instead talks about how Sam is very talented, but like the other chimps, cannot swim.
Yes, apparently it's to do with their body fat proportions. So Winger, at this point, leaves, noting that he hopes to see Ashton again.
And she indicates that she would like to meet him again before leading out the slouching Sam to his cage.
He's not happy about that.
Well, you wouldn't be, would you?
Well, I guess.
So we see him here. I think he naturally acts a bit chimp-like. Mm-hmm. Doesn't seem hugely put. There are a few times where he sort of scratches, and so we've discussed this before as well. Does he take on some of the physical characteristics?
We can maybe talk about this more next week, but
okay.
I think there's some sort of bleed.
Yeah. Later, and after a voiceover in which Sam talks of the Americans firing everything and anything into space in an attempt to win the space race, Sam is seen munching on a banana beside Corey.
Yeah, there's a few of those sort of segues where we get some stock footage and Sam talks nonsense about the space race.
Yeah, indeed.
I think it's a bit of a time filler. It doesn't really add anything to the story.
No, but again,
A little bit of context.
Yeah, and also, this is in a hangar. There's not a lot of, 90% of the show is in this one room.
The footage is all of rockets blowing up. It's all failures. So I think obviously it's meant to demonstrate that Sam's scared. He's going to get put into space in a rocket that blows up.
Sure.
I think. Anyway, as you say, he was eating his banana. He won't share his banana with Corey.
No. Al appears and can be seen by Sam's new girlfriend, which amuses the hologram.
Yeah, he notes that animals can see him, and this is when he talks about how closely related humans and chimps are.
Yeah. Okay, so we've established that. They're very closely related. So.
Well, yeah, scientifically, medically, DNA-wise. Yeah. He also tells Sam that they are at Cape Canaveral in Florida.
Yeah, so that was renamed, and has it been named back? It went to Cape Kennedy.
It went to Cape Kennedy and then went back because the people in charge weren't Democrats and didn't like it.
Okay. He is, as usual, distracted by good-looking women and is jealous that Sam will be getting tucked in by Leslie, who has come over. So again, bearing in mind we had last week's serious take on the issue of sex offences, but Al's back to his old ways of just ogling women. She's not a professional medical. She's not a medical professional. She's a hottie in a skirt.
Well,
glad we've learned a lot from last week.
Yeah. Speaking of Leslie Ashton, she comes by with lemon drops. First of all for Corey, and then for Sam, but he's reluctant at first.
Why is that?
Don't think he likes them.
Okay.
She also notes that he is being more vocal than usual, and he tells her he has a lot on his mind.
I think at this point we find out a bit about Leslie's background.
Yeah, well, she leaves and Al fills Sam in a bit about her.
What does he learn?
He tells her that she's 27. She looks much older than 27.
Yeah.
She's no, I don't mean to offend if she's listening to this.
That's just that old styling again we've discussed before. Yeah.
She's a vet. She's born in London but grew up in Cameroon, which is interesting to Al.
Why?
Because the wrappers for his cigars are made in Cameroon.
Oh, yeah, whatever. But yeah, she's been around chimps all her life. And he then explains that Sam is there to make sure that Bobo is chosen to go into space, because if he isn't, then he is disappeared with the other losers.
Yes, and what happens to him is classified, which means that Sam might also disappear.
In the morning, following some more stock rocket footage,
Rocket failure footage.
Yeah, Sam wakes with a banana peel on his face, but he tries to look in the positives.
So we also see a man driving to the lab in a wee Jeep, and yes, like you say, Sam wakes up reflecting that he could do with a shave all over.
A full body, yeah. The person in the Jeep is an arse of a military employee.
He doesn't even get a name, he's that unimportant, but he comes in and taunts Corey by offering her, I think, some kind of fruit and then rattling her bars. Yeah,
he takes great pleasure in stressing the animal, and after getting spat at by the chimp, is about to hit Corey when Leslie arrives.
Yeah, she's missed this abuse, and...
Yeah, the wee idiot tries it on with her, just like Winger, but I mean, Winger's got a bit more about him.
Yeah, to us I thought it was Winger.
Did you?
First time I was just two baldy guys, all look the same to me.
Right. But one is in military uniform. Winger's a doctor.
Yeah.
But she, in any case, she brushes off this attempt at a pick-up by the arse before Winger arrives.
Yes, and she tells Winger about the chimps a little bit more. She notes that Corey is having her first crush, and he says that he knows how she feels, which is very creepy.
Yeah. What, your first crush?
He's just...
He's a creep, yeah. She also confirms that one of them will be going into space, and she has a belief that they can understand human speech and have their own language, maybe have their own sort of way of communicating, but I don't think they can understand human speech. That's a nonsense.
No, they can maybe understand certain emotions or
Yeah.
basic instructions.
A dog can understand how to sit, but it doesn't understand the word sit. It just knows, it's learned that that's what you've got to do when you hear that sound.
Have you ever seen those social media videos of the dogs with the buttons that say different things?
I don't have social media.
Okay.
And I certainly don't watch animal ones.
Okay.
But I think it's 2007.
Watching animal videos?
A cat play the piano.
I
Hilarious.
spent 2 hours the other night watching cows getting their hoofs trimmed.
That's plenty.
Ashton says at this point that it's cocktail time.
Ashton says that? Or Winger?
No, she says she's going to give the chimps a cocktail.
Ah, right, yeah. And I think he's around at this time as well, he tries to play the big man by talking about how top secret his. He's trying to be all mysterious and enigmatic. And
offers to take her out for a drink, which she kind of half agrees to before he leaves.
Well, I think she does. She wants to get out for a drink, but she's playing it cool. Like, yeah, maybe if I've got time.
Yeah, she's less enthusiastic in 5 minutes' time though.
Why?
I don't know, we'll find out.
Okay.
So he leaves and she tries to give Sam this drink, which he initially refuses but then seems to enjoy.
Up until the point he finds out what the ingredients are.
Yeah, caterpillars. It's no different to any of these sort of smoothies that folk are taking for health these days, is it?
I think the cricket protein, was a bit of a trend. I'm not sure if it still is.
People eat insects now.
Yeah.
Anyway, he spits it out and retches, and she's very upset about this.
There's another doctor. Is it? It's not Tucker, is it? Or just another observer?
Maybe.
He's taking notes and is disappointed by this reaction because obviously this is part of the testing procedure.
Yeah. No, I think it could be Tucker because he's the one that makes the decision, isn't it?
Okay.
Anyway, she notes that she wishes she could talk with Sam, and he says the same thing.
Outside, the clingy and persistent Winger jokes, but not jokes, that he is being stood up for an animal, for a chimp. And after she confirms that she is standing him up, she tells him of her background with the animals in Cameroon.
Yeah, we've already learned this from Al, though.
I'm not sure why you had to find this out again.
We get a wee bit more detail. Her father was a surgeon in London and he moved the whole family to Cameroon because they were needed, that there wasn't enough doctors in the area. And he died 5 years ago, but her mother's still managing a clinic there.
And I think the Winger tries to use this information as a way to sort of empathise and a little bit manipulative.
Yeah, he starts explaining about how he got into neurology, about being a flight surgeon and tired of all the funerals and wanted to do something to help. And he thought coming here might be the best way to do that. She
does, however, decline to go on this date with him until after the launch.
Yeah, she's committed to getting these chimps on the rocket. I don't know why she's chosen these particular chimps out of all the chimps.
They're passing the test. They've, whatever her matrix of measurement is.
Just these two?
Maybe it's been narrowed down to these two. She started off with 100.
Maybe.
Back in the lab.
Well, before that, then we get more disaster clips.
Yep.
As Sam gives us some commentary and says he hopes his plan to leap before he gets blown up in a rocket doesn't fail.
In 2 days' time, yeah.
It always does, though. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'll definitely leap when I do this. No.
He listens to Al, who himself has found out about the caterpillars and is, I think, overly disgusted.
Well, first of all, Al comes in with this sort of dire warning for Sam, and you think he's going to give you some new information, but no, it's just about the caterpillars and the juice. And Sam already knows about that, and he's tired of the examinations. He's desperate for new information so he can figure out what's going on and get out of here. Yeah, well, Leslie at this moment is examining him, but Sam tells Al he is more interested in if he's found out anything to help him, as you say, make the leap. Al's problem is that the records are classified. And he's also more concerned about playing doctors and nurses with Leslie. Yeah, well, you know what he's like. Yeah, as you said, Al has nothing other than to make sure he gets himself into space. And at this point, Sam opens his mouth to be prodded. Well, to have his temperature taken. Yeah. It's a thermometer. As we heard at the top of the show, that's not where it's being inserted. Nah. A little bit later, and we see Sam struggling to perform in a cockpit simulator. Yes, he's in this spinning chair, and Al tells him that he used to be an astronaut, and this thing is a piece of cake, although he's not really sure what these readings mean. Al tries to help. I mean, he's not sure what he should be doing at first. But after a series of electric shocks, Sam figures out what he's supposed to do and earns a food reward. Which he thinks tastes like a cat box. Yes, and he's doubly upset when the liquid he's got to wash it down is caterpillar juice. Next, he has to take a balance test by sitting in a chair with a joystick, followed by a G-force tester. A bit like Spies Like Us
Do you remember that scene?
No.
Chevy chasing Dan Aykroyd.
Right.
Great scene where they're putting this in, and when they walk out, their hair's all up and their faces are stuck like that.
Did they do something like this in Armageddon?
Can't remember.
Where they send the guys into space. Anyway, through all this, we see Tucker worrying about Sam's coordination and Ashton looking worried as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, as well as making him sick, it doesn't look like he has impressed the Doctor.
I know exactly how you feel, Sam. One time, I tossed my cookies on the teacup at Disneyland.
I'm sorry. Bobo and Corey just don't have what it takes to be astrochimps.
But they do.
I'm afraid not. I know how hard you've worked with them over this past
He's
year.
been feeling funny. Maybe he's got a bug, and she just got distracted watching him.
I'm sorry. I'm returning them to the chimp colony for reassignment to another project.
Dr. Tucker, I don't think this is the time.
Sam, looks like Ziggy finally gained access to the base records.
Yeah? So what happens to Bobo?
Well, there's nothing in there with the chimps' nicknames, but there's an autopsy report for chimp number 52.
52?
Yeah, and the cause of death for chimp number 52 was massive head trauma.
We get more clips of exploding rockets, and Al tells Sam that all the space chimps came back alive, but that Bobo won't be part of that process.
The info relating to how he dies is still classified, and things get worse when the arse of a bully from earlier returns with a friend and insults Corey and Sam about being too ironically about being too stupid to make the grade. Well, why would you bully a chimp?
I don't know. Once again, well, this is one of the questions that bugged me through this episode. What's this guy's problem?
Yeah.
But Corey spits on him again and he shoots her with a tranquilizer.
Yes, they drag her onto a trolley and replace her with chimp number 61 as an anxious Sam asks Al what happens to her.
Yes, he tells him that Corey also dies of massive head trauma.
That very day.
The cause is classified, but Sam notes that they're taking her to Winger.
Yes, who Al reveals to Sam is a neurologist. And from this we begin to understand that Winger is performing head trauma tests on the chimps.
Yes, we then get a bizarre scene where Ashton arrives and Sam communicates to her what has happened to Corey.
Oh yeah, this is from a game of charades and pointing. How does he describe?
Sounds like Ring.
This is
Flaps his arms. She's amazed. It's a breakthrough in human-chimp communication.
this is dreadful.
At this point, the two guys come back and she confronts them about what Winger's doing as Sam mimes head trauma, much to their bemusement.
Yeah, the moron points to the replacement, but in a rate, Leslie states that this is Kathy and that he took Corey to Winger's lab. He denies it and laughs at Dr. Doolittle when she tells him that Bobo told her the truth and refuses to divulge what research the sleazy doc is doing.
Yeah, they get into a scuffle, Ashton and this guy, and Sam's holding the guy by the neck from behind as Winger shows up.
Yeah, she sort of freaks out, doesn't she? She goes for him.
Winger manages to calm everybody down and apologises for this mix-up and says Corey will be returned.
Yeah, I think the two goons claim they made an honest, simple mistake.
Right.
It is agreed, as you say, that they will return Corey before Leslie has a go at Winger for his ethics, but he counters with a quite legitimate questioning of her methods.
Bashing its brain.
No, I'm testing helmets. I'm not bashing at brains.
How many chimps have you killed testing helmets?
Doctor, do you know how many test pilots we lost at Edwards?
No.
1 in 4. If there'd been better helmets and protective equipment, maybe some of those men might still be alive today. And besides, what are you getting on me for? You test chimps.
The chimp research in Project Mercury is not lethal.
Well, how do you know they won't die of G-forces or burn up on re-entry?
We don't know for sure, but we're doing our best to ensure their safety.
To ensure the safety of the astronauts.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do for the pilots.
But bashing chimps and trying to extrapolate it to humans won't show you anything. In the Cameroons, I saw chimps fall from over 50 feet from trees, land on their heads, and walk away. A man could die falling off a 6-foot ladder.
The neurological structure of a chimp's brain is just a miniature version of a human.
But the frontal supraorbital ridges of his skull are 2 times thicker than ours. If you want to study human head trauma, study it in a human.
Well, that would be irresponsible.
Oh, and it's not irresponsible to kill a chimp.
Doctor, you're getting very emotional here.
No, Doctor, I'm being rational and scientific.
Doctor, is that an MD or is that a vet's degree?
I got my degree from the Royal Veterinary College and my PhD in animal behavior from London University.
Well, mine is an MD with 8 years of training at Harvard, specializing in neurology. I know neurotrauma.
And I know chimpanzees.
I'm sorry. See, you have your work and I have mine. Bring me another mail!
I must admit, I have a great deal of maybe sympathy is not the right word, but I can completely understand Winger's point of view, and I do think that Leslie is a massive hypocrite here.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah.
She's certainly no member of PETA or whatever it is, PETA. She is putting these animals in like G-force simulators and throwing them around. I don't think anyone who really is passionate about the welfare of animals would be okay with her work.
No, I don't think she really takes into account the fact that chimps have no ambition to go into space.
No, they'd be terrified. Can you imagine just putting any animal in that situation? And also, I said earlier on there, this whole thing about, people are quite happy before it comes down to it. Oh yeah, chimps are practically the same as humans, and then it's like, okay, well we need to test. Oh no, there's no point in testing. They're nothing like humans. You're at it, absolutely at it. Because she talks about the front lobe. Well, what about the back and the side of the head as well? That'll be part of the helmet testing. And in my mind, there's sort of 3 levels here at minimum. The 3 main levels of sort of morals or ethics in terms of testing in animals. So at the very bottom, you've got the cosmetics and the perfumes and all that, where I think most people these days think that's utterly unacceptable.
Yeah.
And then I suppose in the top, if you turn around and say, do you know what, we might be able to invent a cure for cancer, for example, something that would drastically be a positive outcome for the human race. And you go, do you know what? If you can find a cure for cancer, then in the sort of middle tier below that, it's like not making, it's not curing cancer or disease, but it's helping the human race to get into space and all the benefits you get from that scientific endeavour. And he said, you know what? That might well be. And again, I can completely understand if you are someone who's very, very passionate about animal welfare, you're a vegetarian, etc., then legitimately you can say you shouldn't be doing any of this. But here's the thing. I know that you for a fact love a steak. I love a steak. I'm quite happy to know that an animal's been killed because I think they're tasty. I don't need to eat steak. You don't need to eat steak. And I think that everyone accepts that probably red meat these days isn't, it's not great for you and we should be reducing it. But I love a steak. So I can't sit here and go, you know what? There's something here that can help the science and mankind expand out into the universe. At the same time, I'm quite happy to put a bullet in that cow so I can have a lovely ribeye with chips.
I think the important point in this example is whether Winger's experiments are legitimate. If you accept that it's a legitimate experiment, then she's not really got that strong of an argument.
He's not some sort of backstreet scientist. This is with the top.
And Tucker agrees that he should be able to run this experiment.
Yeah, and he makes a point. Listen, you don't know what you're talking about. You might know chimps, but you don't know what I'm doing. You're not a neurologist, so bugger off with your pseudoscience. Or with your... We used to get this a lot of times, if I'm going on a rant here, but during the pandemic, we used to get this a lot of time, where you'd get people who were involved in certain areas speaking on subjects they knew nothing about. You get it on YouTube. Well, there's a doctor here who says the vaccine is wrong. It's like he's not involved in immunology, or he's not involved in the vaccines in the specific field you need to be. So you can't just pull on, oh, here's a doctor, therefore you should listen to him. It's because she knows chimps and she knows a bit about medicine. She's not.
Yeah, and she's not coming at it from a scientific perspective. She's coming at it from the perspective of she likes these chimps. She's worked with them for 2 years. She's attached to them. Clearly that doesn't want them killed.
Clearly understandable, but she must realise that is clouding her judgment here. She's an emotional attachment. And also, this isn't the stage where you're having this argument. You're working for like NASA or whoever it is. We're 2 days away from this. You can't be having this argument with Winger just now. This has all been decided. These tests, these experiments will have been through, will have been passed off and signed off
funding and so
a long time ago. you can't now. Why are you only finding out about this? What did you think was happening?
It's very likely that he's had to go through quite a lengthy approvals process to be able to run these tests. It's a case of he's come up here with a whim saying, "Oh, I know, we'll test helmets on chimps. Give me some chimps." Yeah, and they just keep getting killed.
Yeah, he's not enjoying it. He's not like one of the other idiots who you think is taunting them. Don't get me wrong, I'm not. I don't think you are saying he should definitely be testing on it. But I think there's a legitimate argument, certainly in comparison to her work, where she can't take the moral high ground. Sure.
I mean, I think he doesn't see the chimps the same way she does. He doesn't see them as individuals.
Well, you shouldn't. They're not there to be your friends. This is work. Why would you? In fact, it's, as you see here, it's very. Once you get the emotions involved, then maybe she won't do the tests as robustly as what she should be. Yeah. Anyhow, is that us?
Well, yeah. He goes on to say that his results are easily extrapolated to humans, and she comes up with this line about not sacrificing one species for another, which we've basically covered there.
Yeah.
And he talks about the benefits of primate research outweighing the sacrifice that they have to make. But then, I suppose the counterpoint to that is it's not their choice to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
And nowadays, certainly, I think you would use models and dummies and stuff like that.
Of course, yeah.
Now that they've developed the technology to measure these things differently.
You should certainly never be doing anything that's not required.
Yeah.
But in any case, she doesn't care about, he puts this rational argument. I mean, I think he basically destroys her here. She doesn't gain any ground in this argument or debate.
No.
He has all the arguments on his side, and she doesn't care of what he says. And in fairness, he accepts her position.
Yeah, he offers kind of almost an olive branch at the end, saying he admires her stance, but it's not going to stop him doing his
and it shouldn't.
important work.
What's he got to do? He can't go to his boss and say, "Oh yeah, this doctor, I quite fancy her as well. I think we should stop this."
Certainly not in her two chimps. Back in the lab, Al warns Sam that Bobo is just about to disappear.
Yeah, and she storms back inside as we see that the goons unlock Sam's cage. She tries to stop them, but is thrown to the side, and Sam attacks them to defend her. And hilariously,
one of them notes he knows a bit of karate.
Yes, what is going on here? Yeah, he ends up karate kicking one of them and facing off against the two of them. He's taking this sort of pose. Come on, in. Let's go.
These guys are going to be traumatised by this whole experience.
One of them sounds the alarm while the main goon pulls his electrified baton, which leads Sam to kicking him again.
At this point, there's a security officer comes in and subdues Ashton. It's interesting that the decision was that she's the one that needs to be sat down. I suppose because she's not military, it might be that.
Yeah, I think one of these, it looks pretty severe. A sort of wire necklet is put round his.
Yeah, he gets out of that, but is ultimately tranquilised.
Yeah, and taken away on the trolley, and he finds himself strapped to a chair in Winger's lab.
Yes, we can see a massive metal piston about to embed itself in the side of his head.
Well, he's wearing a helmet, so if the helmet manufacturers have done their job, it should be fine.
That's it. 5,000 pounds of pressure to simulate a plane crash is coming up, and Al is desperately trying to wake Sam from this sedation.
Winger continues to describe what is about to happen, and the tension rises as we are shown the pressure gauge of the device increase.
Yeah, this piston is withdrawn slowly as Al continues to yell at Sam, and Winger narrates the experiment, but he's not telling the truth.
Is he not?
Well, he says that Bobo has normal motor functions and appears content, but he's sedated.
Yeah.
Anyway, a drowsy Sam just about manages to release his buckle in time and duck out the way of this hammer blow that would have surely killed him.
Yeah, and grabs the dart gun before Winger can get to it.
The monkey with the gun, what is going on?
Yeah, but she points at him. He then lets out Corey and leads her by the hand on his great escape, aided by Al, who's given them directions.
Yeah, they sneak past some guys at a desk. It reminded me a bit of Star Trek 4 when Uhura and Chekhov are in the nuclear facility, sneaking around. And outside we see Ashton arguing now with Tucker, who doesn't care what she has to say.
Yeah, she wants to know why he approved Winger's experiments on her chips, on her chimps. See, her chimps, that is the issue. They're not your chimps. They are
attached to them. Yeah,
who she claims feels like family. I think she actually says that, and that's. Well, my question would be to her: your family. So you would take your kids and put them in a G-force simulator?
Well, there you go. Would you?
I would actually.
Just for fun.
One of them in it. Yeah, that'll teach them. Yeah.
Tucker tells her that animal research is critical to the work that they do. And they then argue back and forth about the validity of Winger's experiments.
He points out you're getting attached to him, or too attached to him.
Yeah.
And he also asks how she would like it if he challenged her work.
Yeah, without the expertise to do so.
She claims she is training them to survive, but Tucker simply states that both she and Winger have different views. And who is it to decide who is right? Well, I think you, Tucker.
Yeah. And he's authorised the experiments.
Yeah, end off.
Yep. We then go over to Sam and Corey, who are making their great escape as we see Winger getting in a Jeep.
But they are able to hide with Al's help as he drives past. Now, Al doesn't know where Leslie is, but is more interested in getting Sam off the base and goes to look around.
Yeah, Sam tries to keep Corey calm and promises her that Al will find them a way out and gives her a wee kiss.
It's quite a uncomfortable, intimate moment with the monkey. The monkey, yes.
I shouldn't say monkey, they're not monkeys, but
or ape.
Yeah.
Al then returns with directions, which involves crossing a lake and climbing a fence.
Sam notes that chimps can't swim, but Al says there's a large pipe they can walk out and use.
We find them at the lake. They manage to cross the pipe just as Winger shows up. And as Sam contemplates getting over the barbed wire, he watches as Winger falls into the water and starts to drown.
Yes, and there's barbed wire that they can't, as you say, can't get past that Al hadn't really contemplated.
But instead of leaving Winger to drown, Sam dives in and pulls him to safety as Leslie arrives on the scene and can't believe what he did.
Yeah, both she and Winger are surprised that this chimp has been able to swim, for one thing.
This is going to
chose to save him.
This is going to mess up, everyone's understanding of what
chimps can do. I think they might just write this all off, burn down the facility, don't tell anyone what happened here.
The goons also turn up.
Yeah, and they are personally offended by the chimps being there.
Yeah. But after having a romantic eye-to-eye with Sam, Winger has had a change of heart.
He sees into his soul, he sees the intelligence of the creature and realises that he shouldn't be pounding their brains in.
He tells the goons to drop their weapons and sends them on their way. This was really weird. They're not criminals or bad guys in the sense that...
But why do they show up trying to shoot the chimps?
But why would you say drop your weapons?
Because they're trying to shoot Sam.
No, put your weapons away. If I ask my gun...
Yeah, put it away, don't drop it, yeah.
I'm saying I'm a military personnel here. I'll put my gun back in my holster and I'll be walking away, I'm dropping them.
Yeah, but they do, and Corey picks it up and shoots the guy in the leg.
Yes. Much to everyone's amusement, and I think he will definitely, or she will definitely be getting put down and tested on after that. I mean, you can't have an animal. Both of them actually are a danger.
Once they've got a taster firing a gun.
Yeah, well, if you know they can, that's and especially in this sort of military base where there'll be weapons everywhere, you're just asking to get disappeared.
Well,
in any case, this is a point where Al arrives and provides his traditional episode wrap up.
What happens now?
Dr. Winger, he stops his tests with chimps. Oh, that's good. And he still goes on, develops his helmet that's still in use. It saves a lot of human lives.
That's great, Al. What about Leslie?
She starts her own vet practice in Santa Fe in 1965. And she builds the sanctuary for orphaned and ex-research chimps.
What about Corey?
She and Bobo have a baby.
Oh, well, thank goodness I won't be around for that.
Yeah, really.
There we go.
Yeah, Sam gives Corey a kiss again. He seems to be falling for her.
Want to hang around here. Yeah, Al saying, can you imagine that? That was the mission. Sam, the species here, whatever, is dying out. They need to mate. What do I need to do? You need to
mate.
Beat with the monkey.
He leaps into a man in glasses with a gun at a window. It reminded me a little bit of, was it season 1 with the episode where he was the murder suspect? He leaped in with the gun in his hand and blood everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very long sequence this week.
Yeah, he walks through this house and finds a trail of blood before a police officer arrives and talks to him like he's one of her colleagues.
Yeah, I think she's called Roselli. She crouches with her gun and tells him to check out the noise from the other room.
Yeah, we see him observe something, but we don't know what it is. He gives an "oh boy," and the episode ends.
No, we do. We see a bloodied body of a blonde woman lying on the carpet.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I saw Sam's face.
No. We see the woman.
We must have watched this from different places.
Yeah, maybe a different source, because mine was very long this week. Maybe they've cut it.
Maybe a different edit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, that is the end. A couple of questions.
A couple, huh?
Do you consider the shark to have been jumped here?
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah. I mean, obviously, when you get to the stage of leaping into animals, there's no reason to be running out of ideas or doing racism in baseball every week.
Well, that's true.
So many options.
Why was that angry guy so angry?
Just a bully.
Why would you work there if you hate chimps?
Because you like to bully chimps.
Does he hate all the chimps or just Bobo?
Just Bobo.
Okay. Did Corey see Sam?
Well, that's a good question,
or
yeah.
not?
Have we established this? So
I don't think we have. So we know that animals can see Al, and we know children who can see Al can also see Sam.
Mm.
So do we assume animals also see Sam?
No, I think animals see the leap E.
Even though they see Al?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was a hologram. Different situation.
So it's completely different. It's not to do with the same process.
I think so.
Okay. Any other ideas, thoughts, feelings?
No, I thought you had more questions.
No, that was 3.
Okay. I think we've discussed the sort of ethics and morality of it.
We got into that a wee bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
Some trivia then.
Go for it.
First aired on the 6th of November 1991, directed by Joe Napolitano, the 9th of his 12 episodes. If you want to hear more about him, head back to the podcast for Pool Hall Blues. The writer was the ubiquitous Paul Brown, the 11th of his 13. If you want to hear more about him, Kamikaze Kid is the episode to head back to. Leslie Ashton was played by Caroline Goodall. This was her only Quantum Leap episode, and she's also been in things like Hook, Schindler's List, Berlin Station, Disclosure, amongst many others. She's 64 now, still active. Winger was played by Gary Swanson. Again, his only Quantum Leap. He's also in things like The Bone Collector, Logan's Run, and Kojak. He's now 75 and also still active. Dr. Tucker was played by Albert Stratton. Again, his only Quantum Leap. He's also been in things like Baywatch, Knots Landing, and Star Trek The Next Generation. He died in 2011 when he was 73. The two idiots, I don't know how we're going to distinguish between them, but the first was played by Kim Robillard. His only Quantum Leap. He's also been in a lot of things. How to Get Away with Murder, Rain Man, Django Unchained, The X-Files. Now 68. His last screen credit was in 2021. The other one was played by Peter Murnick. Again, he's only Quantum Leap, but he's also been in things like Billions, Father of the Bride, Transformers, Dark of the Moon, and ER. He's 58 now and still active. I think he'd have been the younger of the two, the less angry man. That was it for the cast. It was a nice compact list this week.
It was.
In terms of other trivia, maybe a slight spoiler. This is the only time Sam leaps into anything other than a human.
Mm-hmm.
The title obviously comes from the movie The Right Stuff about the astronauts in the Mercury program. There was a promotional campaign ahead of this episode in the TV magazines indicating that Sam would go ape this week, which is an obvious and disappointing pun. Sam's scribbled note about his name is probably a nod to Planet of the Apes, where the main character does the same thing. The episode won a Genesis Award for raising awareness of animal issues. In terms of things that we learned a bit more about Al being on the Apollo mission that orbited the moon. Given what we know about when he was a prisoner of war, I suspect that the Apollo missions in this universe took place at a slightly different time from when we remember them. Did we already know that Sam had a Nobel Prize for Physics?
I think so.
Okay.
On this day.
Okay, do you want to start?
Sure. Let's what we got here. Mel Blanc.
Okay.
The voice of Bugs Bunny and many other cartoon characters. He was in a car crash. I think he was in a coma for a number of weeks and was actually reported as dead by one newspaper. Marilyn Monroe was officially divorced from the playwright Arthur Miller. And Elsa, the lioness, who was portrayed in Born Free, she died at the age of 5.
You've also got on this day an air disaster in North Carolina. A plane carrying nuclear weapons broke up over a tobacco and cotton farm, dropping its payload. 5 crew members safely ejected, 2 died in the crash, and a 3rd ejected but did not survive his landing.
Yeah, apparently it was a 3.8 megaton nuclear bomb.
Yeah, and only good luck prevented one of them from detonating. The switch was found in the on position when it was recovered. One of the survivors, I thought this was quite interesting, the third pilot, a man called Lieutenant Adam Maddox, the only known person to have successfully bailed through the top hatch of a B-52 without using an ejector seat.
Wow.
And nowadays there's a road marker nearby which commemorates the incident as a nuclear mishap.
Fair enough. Number ones, in the US we had Will You Love Me Tomorrow by the Shirelles, and in the UK it was Are You Lonesome Tonight by Elvis.
Next week we have Dreams, where Sam has to cope with the effects of a deeply troubled mind. So we will see you in 1979.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye bye.